Welcome back, everyone. Hope one out there is enjoying your weekend. For the last couple of days of October, we ended with several stronger cold fronts that brought temperatures down, especially into Halloween across the central and eastern two-thirds of the U.S. And we also ended on the wetter side as well. We also had several cold fronts that came through the central and eastern two-thirds that brought some much-needed precipitation. And of course, the Pacific Northwest ended on the wetter side as well. And now, taking a look at the tropics, we also dealt with Melissa, a powerful hurricane category 5 of Melissa, topping out at 185 miles an hour. Of course, that just devastated Jamaica through Haiti and portions of the Bahamas, skirted Bermuda, and now that is safely well written off the coast and turned post-tropical. What's left behind is a fairly clear tropics. We do have some unsettled weather in and around the Bahamas, and then we'll have to watch this area further south into southern Caribbean. But there's the cold front. It's actually moved back into the Gulf and back behind it. Look at that, folks. That is crystal clear skies and a lot of sunshine, and the big weather flip ahead that's coming up for next week. And if you look at this jet stream, notice where it's at. It is well to the north, folks. Whenever you see something like that, you basically get what they call zonal flow underneath. That is definitely a warm flow off the Pacific, especially with the ridge of high pressure building in. With clear skies and a lot of southwest winds, those temperatures are going to elevate throughout the week. All the precipitation is going to be really confined across the Pacific Northwest, especially with this conveyor belt of moisture that will be inundating these areas to Washington and Oregon and portions of Northern California. And they'll see several of these throughout the week, pounding the coast with high winds and some heavier rains the further off into the coastline you live. And as we head into that Monday time frame, you can kind of see that conveyor belt of moisture on the water vapor imagery pulling in from the Pacific, pushing in those heavier rains across areas of Washington and Oregon. Of course, underneath that is just all the clear skies and the light winds, and those are the temperatures are going to be elevating. You could easily see 90s back into the desert Southwest, widespread 80s across the central U.S., and we even could be pushing 80 degrees down there in Dallas, and further south may even touch 90s this week into South Texas. Yes, a lot of warmer air is going to be on the way for November standards, and a lot of drier air. Remember what happens with Melissa, since it was just so powerful, it took an exorbitant amount of energy out of the atmosphere. And what's replaced is a lot of clear skies and a lot of dry weather ahead. So for the next 24 hours, there's not much to speak of as far as precipitation goes through Monday morning. It's pretty clear across a good part of the lower 48, and there it is. The ridge of high pressure will be dominating for much of the week. Starting really on Tuesday, it kind of gets locked in across the central U.S. and just kind of expands, and as it does, you got a lot of sinking air underneath that type of air mass. And where you even see any instability, you got to go pretty far north into the Pacific Northwest. They're going to be cooling off, and because of all the cloud cover and all the rain they're going to be dealing with. But once it hits the interior regions, it kind of dries up because it hits that ridge of high pressure. But it's not until you get into the northeastern areas where we do see a little bit of a dip in the trough. We're talking areas like New Hampshire, Vermont, especially there in the Maine. You're likely going to be on the cooler side, a little bit more instability. But further south, it's pretty clear skies ahead. And you can definitely see that on the surface map heading into Wednesday. We're not talking about much precipitation to work with this week, right? So you got a lot of sinking air, a lot of sunshine ahead, and it's going to be well above average for November standards. And there is yet another system by Wednesday morning will be coming in from the Pacific Northwest. We'll have several of these this week, and this will definitely be adding up to some pretty hefty totals across these areas into the Pacific Northwest. Nothing unusual, especially for La Nina and heading into November for them. But wow, look at the temperatures, folks. These are above average temperature anomalies, and it's pretty widespread across the board. It's hard pressed to have some below average temperature anomalies, and that's going to be the more or less the complete flip that we're talking about here comparatively to last week. And yeah, it's not going to feel like November by any stretch of the imagination, because those temperatures are going to be easily 10 to 15 degrees above average. And if you look at the actual temperatures heading into that Wednesday afternoon, yeah, you got widespread 50s across the top. But you start getting into Nebraska, you're back into the 60s. You start getting into Kansas, you're back into the 70s, and Missouri, Illinois, portions of Indiana and Ohio, you get 70s in Oklahoma. But now further south, back into Texas, you're getting 80s, if not pressing 90 degrees for West Texas, maybe South Texas. So yeah, there's going to be plenty warm air to speak of, and definitely well below average comparatively what you should be like for November the 5th. And it's really just because of the jet stream, folks. Whenever you see something like this is heading into Thursday. Yeah, pretty clear across underneath. There's no dip. There's no buckle in the jet stream. It's pretty far north, and that's where any somewhat unsettled cooler air will be underneath. It's all about the sinking air. So hard to get pressed rains across Southern California into the desert Southwest. Much of the southern and central plains, much of the southeast is going to be finding hard time to see precipitation this week. And yes, further north, we are going to be looking at a little bit of a dip, a little bit of a northwest flow type axis to it, and bringing some of that more instability with another system heading into that Thursday afternoon. There's the cooler air, somewhat cooler anomalies, definitely not cold for them any stretch of the imagination. And of course, the warmer air will be dominating for a good part of the central U.S. heading into that Thursday afternoon. There's the unsettledness with that disturbance that will be coming across. So most of the country will be on the dry side. You have to really kind of go to the corners, the northwest corners and the northeast corners, to find a little bit of instability and some rain showers with them. And they need it, folks. They definitely need it in Pennsylvania, into New York, back into areas of Massachusetts, Connecticut, back into New Hampshire, as well as into Maine. Yeah, you can see that blue. That is definitely some mountain snow is going to be falling, but that's a wet snow because it's technically really not that cold. And there's the next series of disturbed weather will be coming in for the Pacific Northwest heading into that Thursday afternoon. It's really not until Friday that we start to see a little bit of a change, and that's because the ridge will start backing up. It'll start backing up out west, allow a little bit of flow, allow a little bit of this jet stream to dip just a little bit further south to include some areas back into Missouri, Kentucky, portions of Tennessee. That won't be until that Friday time frame. So again, we're not really talking about much precipitation on Friday through Saturday morning. These are just light rain. All the white areas, that's next to nothing precipitation. You'd have to go and get, this is maybe a 1/4 inch. We're not really talking about heavy precipitation here, just light to moderate rains at times pushing through Indiana, Kentucky, portions of, getting into Ohio, West Virginia, Western PA. Those areas will likely see some rain showers Friday morning through Saturday morning during that 24-hour time span. And of course, we'll be watching that trough come in with that ridge trying to sneak back further west. We'll have, but this is before a cool front. You get that what they call compressional heating. So I wouldn't be surprised further south. These are days that you could be pressing some widespread 80s, if not 90 degrees further south, ahead of some of that cooler air that will be trying to push in from the north. But there's the instability for the weekend. This is next weekend as far as precipitation goes. Again, with that ridge sneaking back out west, it's going to be pushing that ridge of high pressure, all the sinking air back out west again. Then the trough digging back out east will allow some instability. That won't be until Thursday. We'll have another push on Saturday. So for next weekend, we'll have some heavier rains try to sneak into Kentucky, Tennessee, back into Mississippi, Alabama, northern Georgia, those areas into Virginia, across a good part of Pennsylvania, New York, those areas into New England. Should start to see some beneficial rains as we head into this weekend. But overall, if you do the math, it's going to be a warm week, folks. So it's completely different than what we kind of saw just in the last 5 days. We're definitely going to be seeing a warm up, big warm up on the way, with a big weather flip on the way, with that ridge of high pressure, more or less the big story for the week ahead. And as far as precipitation goes, this is a 7-day map, folks. So yes, obviously with the conveyor belt of moisture, with the series of disturbances that will be coming in from the Pacific Northwest, you're going to be remaining on the cooler, if not definitely rainier side. Some flooding rains, maybe not out of the question. You could be picking up some pretty hefty totals by the time the next week rolls around with these series of disturbances. Notice when you get to across the middle part of the country, starts meeting that ridge of high pressure and kind of evaporates most of this precipitation. It's really not until Thursday, and then of course combined with next weekend, this is where you'll see most of these rains out into the eastern half of the US. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update while I protect you before and after the storm.